So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to the Apple iPhone 6s Plus now. Now the reason I'm making this video is because the 6s Plus is one of the cheapest large iPhones that I feel is still a pretty competent performer that you can buy right now, specifically if you look on the refurbished used section. But if you want to get it new, you're probably going to find it a little higher price point. But you know, there's even people selling this thing for as low as $165. Now, that's like iPhone SE prices for a 5.5-inch phablet here with an even better overall device. So if you're looking for a 6s Plus, now's a good time to buy one if you're looking for a secondhand model and you've really been liking this phone for quite some time and you never picked one up. You're looking for one now, you're gonna get it at, you know, budget Android prices here for this device. But it's a tricky proposition to decide if it's going to be worth it or not. So what is the body and the build and design like now with this device? Well, the thing about this device is that when it first came out, it was one of the most premium industrial phones you could buy. But right now, this device with so many, phones that are, $200, $300 that look basically like this device. I'm talking about some phones from Huawei, Honor devices, things like that. This phone no longer looks super industrial and super different from a lot of cheaper phones these days. So it's kind of lost that, beautiful look that it once had, and it just kind of blends in these days. But at the same time, you can rest assured that if you do buy it, you have reinforced aluminum. It's not that bendy aluminum that you had on the original 6 Plus, and it still feels premium holding it. It just doesn't look like a standout device. But overall, it's still a pretty nice one nonetheless if you're gonna pick one up secondhand. So I think the body and the build has held up okay. Definitely had a screen protector on this one. I definitely put it in cases as it's still, a little fragile on the screen. But the aluminum backing here definitely won't crack like glass. Although you will not get wireless charging right now with this iPhone 6s Plus, so that could be a downside if you like wireless charging. So discussing the display, now this display is actually pretty darn good. 1080p, we haven't really moved past 1080p. Yeah, we have 2K displays, but in terms of sharpness, this display is just as sharp as any of the newer devices that are out there right now. Where the newer devices have improved though has been in things like contrast ratio, a little bit more vibrancy, and more accurate colors, true tone, stuff like that. You don't get those neat fancy features, but you get your typical 1080p, sharp LCD panel. This is not OLED or anything like that. But I never had an issue with the 6s Plus's display. It's plenty bright. It gets brighter than a lot of devices, and it's a high quality LCD. So I think if you pick it up now, there's really no issue still with this phone. Also, you do get the 3D touch on this display as well. So if you are looking for an overall solid LCD screen, this one is not bad whatsoever. I think you will be pleased even if you bought this right now. Talking about software, we're like 3 years in now, going on 4 with the iPhone 6s Plus, and as we expect always, we are getting updates still for the iPhone 6s Plus. 12.1 is available. I haven't updated it yet to that edition, but still, you can see you're still getting updates on this device, and you will continue to do so with this phone for I think a few years to come here. So buying it now, you're not even buying an outdated phone, at least software wise. Yes, hardware a little bit outdated, but not too much, and you do get software updates coming for a couple more years still. It's actually not a bad investment to pick up a 6s Plus, even if it's a backup phone. You also have a headphone jack on here, which is something that Apple no longer does. So that's a benefit if you have some old headphones and you don't want to invest in Bluetooth. However, with a single firing speaker, it's much more tinny and not as loud as things you're gonna find on like the newer phones with their dual speakers up at the top and at the bottom. So the iPhone 6s Plus does make some trade-offs, but again, under $300, I could kind of live with those for what you're getting here in software. So we talked about software, but what about performance? I don't want to go on too much, but if you took a look at my iPhone 6s Plus versus iPhone XS Max video, you would have seen that this phone held its own even against the XS Max, showing how good the software is on the iPhone experience here, even being an older phone. This thing kept up easily with the brand new iPhone XS Max. I encourage you to watch my video. I'll leave it linked up here if you haven't seen it already, if you're considering this phone, because it held its own even against the latest iPhone XS Max. So no real issues with the performance. You have 2 GB of RAM and an Apple A9. Ever since the A9, the phones from Apple have been super fast. So haven't seen too much of an issue there in terms of its overall speed. Okay guys, so let's talk about the storage. You can get this thing in up to 128 gigabytes. That's the max capacity for the iPhone 6s Plus. That's the one I have here. You can get 64 gig and I believe a 32, maybe even a 16 if I'm not mistaken. So the 6s Plus has a wide range of storage options for you, and I think this device definitely should have enough storage if you're, willing to go for at least 64 or higher. So storage is not too bad. You don't get the 256 gigabyte option you might have seen on some of the newer iPhones, but still I think 128 gigabytes is the sweet spot for most people. Talking about the camera, the iPhone 6s Plus is featuring a 12 megapixel 4K sensor here. That's 2160p recording, and when Apple released this phone, the camera was actually better than the one on the 6 Plus, which was already pretty good. So this was a more refined camera, meaning that you got a better overall quality. The camera bump at the time was there, but it's funny to say that it was even a bump because it's so small compared to the new camera bumps. You can see just barely right there, so not bad. Now the overall software of this camera is very similar, if not identical, to all the newer iPhones, but you don't have portrait mode. So if you're looking for a portrait mode, you can get cheaper phones than this that have portrait mode, but those portrait modes on those cheap phones are not usually that good. The primary shooter on here is actually very good on the 6s Plus. I don't think it's anywhere near the new cameras. Of course, you wouldn't expect it to be, but I mean, for everyday shots with good lighting, it ain't bad at all. And you have your square mode, panel mode, and if you go into video settings, you also do have the same 4K up to 30 resolution that most of the new iPhones give you, but you don't get one feature, and that's 4K 60. So if you were looking for 4K 60, the 6s Plus doesn't give you that. The front selfie camera is a 5 megapixel camera, so they have improved this front camera, but iPhones have been doing pretty decent selfies for some time now. I mean, it's not super sharp and all that, but something about the way it processes the image, it looks pretty darn decent. So the front camera can also do video at up to 1080p, so it's not bad. I think it's not an excellent camera, but it's not bad here for the front-facing shooter either for the 6s Plus. So it's 2018, and right now I'm not disappointed in the camera with this phone. I'm not blown away, but I am not disappointed whatsoever. So talking about phone call quality, I actually had a mixed experience with the 6s Plus. Phone call quality didn't really have reception issues, but I had some crackling noise. I don't know if it was my model or whatever, but I had a couple times where people couldn't hear me on the 6s Plus. But overall, I think that, you would have a decent time with the phone call quality with this phone. It's not going to blow you away with HD, crystal clear, top of the line call quality out there, but it's still not bad at all. But one thing that is kind of weak is the speaker phone call quality because it doesn't have dual speakers. So I would say this phone is probably better for a headphone jack and then, talking to people through some headphone piece, something like that, over the speakerphone on this one. So the battery life on the iPhone 6s Plus, 2750 milliamp hour battery. It's not bad, but it's not excellent either. It's pretty decent battery life. So I feel like it'll get most people through a day, but I don't think it's stretching 2 days unless you're a super light user. Heavy users will kill this thing easily in 1 day. So to me, this is a 1 day phone. If you do some battery optimization tricks on iOS, you will get at least easily through the day. But like I say, you're not getting 2 days. You're not getting Galaxy Note 9 type battery life on this thing. No way. At the end of the day, this is December 2018. Is the iPhone 6s Plus something in the $250–300 price range that's worth your time? And I think if you're looking for an Apple iPhone, you don't want something small like the SE. You don't want something small like the iPhone 7, for example. You don't want the iPhone 6s, the smaller one. You want a bigger phone, but you don't want to pay $400 for a 7 Plus, for example. You don't want to pay $500–600 for an 8 Plus, for example. The 6s Plus should still be something you consider. It runs the latest version of iOS. It has a pretty good 4K camera here. It does have a headphone jack. It has a nice clicky home button that has 2nd gen Touch ID. It does have 3D touch, something you don't even get on the latest iPhone XR. This phone does it all. It really does. And it's super low price point compared to most other iPhones. Yes, you can't buy it at Apple, but you can get it at most places outside and third party. That's it for me with the iPhone 6s Plus now. But now, what are your thoughts on the iPhone 6s Plus? Comment them down below. Would you pick one up now? Have you already moved past this device? You gave it off to somebody else? Is it a backup phone? Are you thinking about grabbing one as a side phone? Let us know your take on the 6s Plus over 3 years now later. The great thing about phones these days is that because they're advancing so fast, the older phones are just so good for people who don't want to pay $1,000 for the latest and greatest. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you all in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.